Hi, I'm Dan, and for the last 4.5 years I've been cycling around the world. And one of the questions that I'm asked a lot is, how do I navigate? How do I find my way when I don't have access to paper maps and I don't have access to the internet? So the short answer to that is, most of the time I use an Android smartphone, and the longer answer to that is in this video. So this video is going to tell you about one app that I use more than anything else when I'm traveling on the road, called Locus Pro. And the beauty of this app is that it allows me to make routes and elevation profiles, showing the up and down, how much climbing I have to do in a day. Shows me all of that when I'm offline. I can access that information only using my phone with no connection to the internet. I use a few other apps as well, I should add. I use Maps.me. Nearly every traveler, cycle tourer knows about Maps.me. Maps.me is brilliant for quick and dirty navigation. But it doesn't allow you that much control over making your routes. At the moment there's no good way to save routes that you've created with Maps.me. So with Locus Pro you get a lot more control over building the route. I'll say at the start that Locus is only available for Android. So if you're an iPhone user, you might as well stop watching now unless you're thinking of switching to Android, because Locus is not available for iPhone. And there are dozens of mapping applications for both Android and for iPhone. This is not a review, this is not a best of. I haven't tried all of them. I have no affiliation to Locus. So really I don't care whether you use Locus or another one, but if you are interested in Locus, I found it quite a steep learning curve. There's a lot to take in, and there are quite a few steps that you need to go through to set it up, to make it work offline, basically. I was lucky that somebody could show me how to do it in detail, and I must have talked, I don't know, a dozen people through how to set up Locus Pro since I've been using it for about the last 4 years now. So I thought it'd be helpful to create this resource so we can refer to it. Let me show you an example of what I'm talking about. So here, this is just a basic route that I created when I was on the Baja Peninsula earlier this year. And this is the kind of elevation profile that it would create. And I can do that on the fly, completely out of connection with the internet. So I can plan basically my days, where I'm going to camp, how much energy I need to have in reserve, all of that good stuff. As a cyclist, knowing where the climbs are is invaluable. So I'm sitting in front of a laptop with a smartphone, and the significance of that is I actually use another mapping application to create a sort of big picture route on a website called Ride with GPS. And like Maps.me, it's not really a secret. Everybody in the touring world knows about Ride with GPS, and I'm sure there are lots of good videos about how to use that to best effect. Day to day, as I said, on the road, out of communication, I use Locus Pro on the smartphone. All right, so that's the what and the why. Now for the how. This is the detailed bit. The first thing you need is to get the Locus Pro app on your phone. So you get that in the Play Store, and it looks like that. I've already got it, so it doesn't offer me the download option here. There is a charge for the Locus Pro itself. The app is a one-off purchase, $11 I think it is currently, so €10. There is a free version, a light version, which you might want to try out before you go for the Pro version, but you don't get the most important aspects of the Pro version, namely offline elevation data, that ability to see how much up and down you have in your route. You don't get that with the free version. What you don't have to pay for is any of the maps. There are many different mapping formats that you can use with Locus Pro. The one that I favor is OpenStreetMap. So the second thing you need once you've got the app installed on your Android phone is to get some maps. You can do that natively within the app itself, or I find the easier way to do it is to navigate to a website called openandromaps.org. So here we go. So if you go to openandromaps.org, click the little three bars up at the top, maps download, countries and regions, and then you find the map for the place you want. So let's say I want to go into the USA. Bigger countries with a lot of mapping information, like the USA for instance, a lot of roads there tend to be broken down here into states sometimes into regions. Some countries, you're going to have to download the whole country, which is going to make for a big map file. So looking at this, you can see that Alaska is a pretty big state, 940 megabytes, it's quite a big file. Mexico, where I am now, for instance, that's going to be something like 1.3 gigabytes. So you need to have a fair bit of space on your phone to download these maps. So if you're traveling through a few countries, you probably only want to download the next 2 or 3 countries onto your phone. Otherwise, you're going to be using up an enormous amount of storage space. What you can do with Locus is to tell it where you want to store the map data on your phone. So I have mine set, and I'll show you how to do this in a moment. I have mine set to store the maps on the micro SD card, on the external memory. So let me show you an example. So I already have the maps of the country I'm in now, but let's say I want to tour in Hawaii. It's a nice small map file. You're not going to just hit that Carta Maps one, the download there. You're going to open up the little plus, and you're going to go down to Android, install on Locus. And that is then going to open it up in Locus and start this little process that we can see now as it downloads. So that's downloading. It's going to take some time, obviously for the bigger map files for entire countries, it might take even a couple of hours. So you want to make sure you've got a stable Wi-Fi connection, an unmetered connection preferably. You don't want to be doing this over mobile data unless you've got an enormous mobile data allowance. Or you can copy them. If somebody else has them on their phone, you can do that as well. So while that's downloading, I'll show you how to set where in Locus you select the place that it saves your maps. The settings are hidden just off the bottom of that menu, and then you're going to go to miscellaneous right at the bottom, and then you're going to hit default directories. You don't need to worry about the root directory, but under advanced there, the second one down is set maps directory, and that's where your offline maps are going to go. And mine, I have it set to SD card Locus Maps, the SD card being the external 64 gigabyte memory card that I have mounted on the phone. Okay, so now that that map has downloaded and extracted, it should display automatically. If it throws an error, it's worth looking in the Maps offline directory and making sure that it's listed there. If not, then you hit the plus down there, external maps, and then you just want to navigate to the place where you've stored your external maps. In my case, on removable there. So actually that one had extracted, but it wasn't listed in my my file browser for some reason. Maybe I changed the name of the folder since I set it up. Anyway, so there it is, Hawaii including small isles. Okay, so now you have your base maps, you could actually start making a route. But, and this is a kind of big but, the routing functions that are built into Locus are only for online use. And they're not great. If you want to use this offline, which is the whole point of this video really, then you need to download some offline routing files. And you need a separate plugin app. This is where things start to get a little bit more complicated. So you're going to need a separate plugin app called BRouter or BRouter. I'm not sure quite how you pronounce it. You can get it straight off the Play Store. I'll show you how. And it's specifically for Locus Pro. So you're going to install that. I'm just going to update it while I think of it. And then once that's installed, you're going to go to the BRouter app itself, and it's going to show you this. You want the download manager. This is just a disclaimer. Accept that. And this beautiful interface looking like it's from the 1990s. And it's just a question of selecting the grid squares where you want to be. So I already have the grid squares for most of Central America and North America. I want to download these grid squares. These are not very big map files, I should say. This one's coming up 2 megabytes. What I should point out is you need to err on the side of caution. If you miss any part of the area that you want to route in, then it will fail, it won't work. So err on the side of caution. It's not letting me pick that one for some reason. But it is letting me pick that one, suggesting that there is a little bit of map showing in that. And I'm just going to hit start download. They're pretty small, so they're pretty quick. Boom, boom, boom. All good. I've got those now. So I'm good for offline navigation using BRouter or BRouter. Okay, so now you've downloaded the BRouter, the BRouter app. You need to tell Locus Pro to use the BRouter routing algorithms rather than its own native algorithm. So you are going to go into Settings, then you're going to choose navigation, then you're going to choose navigation data source. You're going to hit whatever's highlighted there. It's probably going to be set to yours when you first come in here, and you're going to switch offline BRouter, and you're going to leave that just as the default setting. I use it offline or online, I just leave that in place. You can also set some of the other preferences for BRouter right here, or you can do that as you create the route in the main map display, which is what I prefer to do. Okay, so I'm not really traveling in Hawaii at the moment. I'm currently in Mexico, and I want to make sure that I've got the elevation data for my whole possible route through Mexico. So using Ride with GPS, I've created this kind of ideal dream route. Whether or not I follow that on the ground day to day, very unlikely. But that's the kind of route that I might want to take. So the easiest way for me to get that into Locus Pro is to download the GPX file. There we go. The easiest way for me to get that onto my phone is to just send myself a quick email with that. It's going to take a second to upload. Okay, that pops up as an email on my phone. Download the attachment. I wouldn't normally recommend using a route of that length and complexity with Locus Pro. The bigger the file, the more data it has to crunch and render. But let's try. Okay, so I'm telling it to import. We're only going to use that as a guide to get the elevation data that we need. So tap on the call out button. That should open up the information and stats page for that route, and you're going to hit the little arrow button down at the bottom, and right at the bottom there's another one that says more. You're going to hit that, and we want to update elevation. Okay, so it's telling us to add the elevation of the selected objects, and it adds a buffer around it as well. That's coming out about 21.6 megabytes. That's kind of a big elevation file for Locus Pro, but that's a big complex route with a lot of mountains. I mean, this route is what? That's the best part of, I don't know, 4,000 kilometers, maybe a bit less. But with a lot of twists and turns, a lot of control points that I added in Ride with GPS. So that makes it a complex file, which is going to slow Locus Pro down. I wouldn't use that as my guide route on Locus. We can break that down into smaller pieces, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But for the time being, we just want to get the elevation data for the whole run. And I'll do that again for the next part of my route, from the end point of this route to another point further down the road, just to make sure that I'm good for elevation data no matter where I travel when I'm offline in Mexico. So that's nearly downloaded all of that. Fingers crossed, we should be good to go, and I can show you how to display the topographic information on the map as well. We can have some map shading. Hey, there we go. So at the cursor of the map, we're getting the elevation of that part of the map. So there it's saying 1,231 meters. This is a huge GPX file, and it will make Locus run in a slightly buggy way. So I'm not going to keep this displayed. So I'm going to switch that off. This is something you want to know about as well. So I've got hundreds of routes during all parts of my trip. Don't keep them all displayed. When you open up the Locus app, it will try and display everything that you have switched on, and it will really slow down the time it takes to run the app and open up the app. So I'm going to switch those to just invisible there. Any that you're not going to be actually using on the day, just switch them off. So to make the app run much more smoothly. If I try to download the elevation data for the whole of the displayed screen, this little icon up at the top with the map and the alert is telling me that I don't have it. You can add for the whole screen if you want as well. So we can add another just to get rid of that. But every time you go outside of an area that you don't have elevation data, you're going to get that little icon popping up there anyway. You can disable it if you want, if it distracts you. Okay, we're good to go now. That's a lot to take in, I know, but we are now able to make offline routes using Locus Pro without any connection to the internet. So first of all, we got the Locus Pro app itself, then we got the maps from OpenAndro map, then we got the BRouter offline routing plugin app. Then we downloaded the tiles for the BRouter's algorithms. Then we downloaded a dummy route or a long route through the region that we want to travel, and we updated the elevation data for all along that route. I would show you to absolutely prove by disconnecting my phone from the Wi-Fi. If I do that, it will drop the screencast because I'm recording this using my laptop. But trust me, we're good to go offline now. So the basics of making a route. Okay, so go to the three little bars up there, more functions, route planner. We can center the map to our current location if we have a GPS lock. I want to start routing from where I am now in Ensenada. So let's say that I want to plan a route cycling from where I am now up the Bahia de Guadalupe. So move the center of the map, just hover over the road as close as you can. Boom, there was the first point. Go a little bit further along the road. Try to stay away from junctions, the same principle as with Ride with GPS, of course. Hovering over it, hit another control point. And we can toggle between the different routing algorithms, the different preferences. Let's tell it cycle specific roads. There's not a great deal of route choice there anyway, so Locus Pro won't send you all around the houses just to find a cycle route. I expect it will, yeah, exactly. It's just routing us along the main road. The BRouter app isn't like Maps.me. It won't send you 100 miles out of your way just to find a cycle route. Okay, so as we go, it generates this on the fly route profile, which is kind of nice. You can see the effects of the last step that you put in, but nothing's saved. If I want to remove the last one there, it will just update that on the fly. Okay, so there we are in Tecate. If I want to save that route now, those three bars at the top right, hit save, give your route a title. So let's call it Ensenada to, I don't know, Tecate, good enough. Hit save. You can edit all of these details afterwards, and then that's displayed. Then when you click on it, open up the usual information bar, and on chart there, we've got that. And when you've got a GPS fix, I'm actually indoors now, there'll be a little green dot on there to show you where you are relative to the remainder of the route. And that's the feature that I like with Locus Pro. That's why I use it. Okay, so those are the basics of route planning, or of making a short route with Locus Pro when you're offline. And the other thing I like to do is to customize the interface. The way to do that is to go into settings, hit controlling, then you're going to hit panels and buttons, and you can choose the three function panels, the top three icons that you saw there in the top right of my screen, and you can select all of the different functions. For me, I like to have GPS, which shows green when I actually have a GPS lock, so I can see at a glance. I like to be able to access my maps, so I can toggle between the different maps that I have downloaded offline, and I like to be able to access points that I've saved and tracks. So they're both together in data. You could have just tracks if you wanted, or just points. You can have anything, whatever works best for you. I find those three things are the three things that I use most. So we have them up here at top right. So there's maps, there's tracks, and data points. And that's green, showing that we have a fix. Okay, the other nice feature that I like to use, as I mentioned before, you can see here this grey shading gives me an instant overview of just how mountainous or how flat the terrain is without even looking at the elevation numbers themselves. Okay, so the way to set that up is we're going to go into settings again, we're going to go into maps, we're going to go into advanced features, and you want to make sure that map shading there is enabled for all the different kinds of maps, for personal maps in particular. I have it to hill shading. You could select any other kind of shading that you prefer as well. Okay, another feature that I quite like, you might be wondering, what is that line with the arrows that's moving? That's basically a heading line. Basically turns orientation of the phone into a compass. So you can see I'm twisting that, and it's changing the lines of the bearings there. So I know I'm facing more or less due north now. If that's of interest, the way to do that, again, settings, maps, auxiliary graphics, and there are a few different things you can choose from. I choose heading line, make sure that that is enabled. Okay, so those are just a few of the features that I've discovered with Locus Pro. As you can probably tell from dipping into some of those settings menus, this is a very richly featured app. I guess I probably use, I don't know, less than 50% of its capability. I haven't even discovered a lot of its capability. The few limitations that I've come up against, and this may just be a limitation of my knowledge of the app, is that although this is using OpenStreetMap, the same map that Maps.me uses, for instance, it's not searchable like Maps.me. So I want to click on something, let me say I want to click on the name of a town there. There is address information embedded in this map, but it doesn't seem to me to be searchable in the same way that Maps.me is. So I use Maps.me for that every day. Search for the name of a town, search for the name of a business, an address. So Maps.me works in conjunction with this. There probably is a way to search it. If you know, please leave me a comment or send me a message, because I would love to be able to use Locus Pro in that way. But to the best of my knowledge, it doesn't seem to work. Another limitation of this using OpenStreetMap is it has varying levels of detail in different parts of the world. In USA, in Europe, very detailed. Pretty much anything you can find on Google Maps is going to be available on the OpenStreetMap. For countries where it's not so widely used, where I am now in Mexico, a lot of the desert roads, a lot of the streets in small towns in remote places are not on OpenStreetMap. So there is a limitation in coverage there, but that's not a limitation of Locus Pro, that's a limitation of using OpenStreetMap. Okay, so one feature I'd like to show you as well is how to crop or how to cut a longer route. For instance, the long route that I made through Mexico. That's too unwieldy really to use. It's going to make the app run really slow. It's going to be really buggy. So the way that I go about doing that is to select on the route, open up the information, hit the little arrow down at the bottom right there, and we're going to create a copy. Basically, if this goes pear-shaped, if this goes wrong, I don't want it to have affected the original route. So we're going to create a copy, just hit create there. Okay, so that copy is being created. So then we're going to open up modify track. And there are a few different ways you can get at this, I might add. From inside the information pages, you can also do that. So we're going to use the tools to either delete all before or after a point. Let's say randomly pick somewhere around about there. So I select by clicking on the route there, hit the little pencil icon for edit. And let's say I want to save the part before that. So the part from where I am now up to there. So I'm going to tell it to delete all after. And then it's going to ask me to confirm. When you hit the little tick, the little check to say yes, it will save it. So that's done. That's why you want to make this as a copy. If you do that and then you decide you didn't like the effect of it, it's done. There's no subsequent save after that. So hitting that little check mark there deletes that from this route. So we're going to delete that from the copy. This will make a much smaller GPX track now, so it's going to be much more manageable. It's going to display and the app will run much more smoothly. And I would generally tend to keep those to, I don't know, max 200 or 300 kilometers long. I generally work with pieces of route of about 200 to 300 kilometers, so maybe 3 days worth at a time. Okay, that's been successful. It took quite a while actually because that was such a big file to work with, but that should generally make the app run a lot more smoothly now. We don't have such a long route. Okay, one final feature which I really like about Locus Pro as well is you can actually use it to do the opposite of that. You can join together, you can splice together two tracks. So long as there isn't that much of a gap between them, Locus will bridge that. So let's go from the end and say like, well, maybe I wanted to extend it a little bit. Let's go to the end of that track and create a new route, and we're going to make it line up with it. If you already had a route, so much the better, but I'm going to just create something here. Whoop. So let's get that lined up, pretty close to that one. Hit the first point, go a ways down the road. I'm not going to make this very long. Yeah, okay, so I didn't get it quite into Yapachik village. Let's say that I wanted to do that. So save that, give it a title. Let's call it, I don't know, into Yapachik. Save that out. Then we're going to go into our tracks, look at the listing. Okay, so let's switch everything else off. So we've just got the Ensenada to Zacatecas copy. That was the shortened version, remember, that I just cropped earlier on, and into Yapachik. But you don't have to turn everything else off. Press and hold, and it will select the first one. See that little check mark there? Put a tick in the other one there as well. Hit the little arrow there, and we're going to go merge tracks. And it'll offer you a couple of options. Which track you want to have first, basically, so which direction. So here we've got Ensenada Zacatecas first, into Yapachik second, in the original direction, so both tracks running as they were originally plotted. Merge with gaps, and you can even tell it to delete the original tracks if you want to risk that. So we're going to go hit merge. Okay, so yeah, that's been successful. Usually it gives it the date, yep, gives it the name of the date. So I'll show you how to edit the name of the track and any other details you want. Click on it to open it. You're going to hit that little arrow down there, and we're going to go for edit info. So we're not modifying the track itself, we're just editing the info. Okay, so we're going to call that, I don't know, Ensenada to Yapachik now. And while you're about that, if you like, you could also edit how that's displayed, which folder you've got it in, what kind of information you associate with that. Okay, so those are most of the hints and tricks that I use regularly. There are a few others. I've recently started to work with Locus to download Google Maps. You can do it. You can create a buffer around a longer route that you've created and then download Google Map tiles. The problem with that is to get it at the kind of detail that you're probably used to with the Google Map app. You really have to download a heck of a lot of data, and Google limits the amount of map tiles that you can download as a private user per day. That's pretty much everything I know about Locus Pro. If you like the video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel. If you have any particular questions about Locus Pro that you think I could answer, do leave a comment. If you have other ideas for other how-to videos, either about navigation or other elements of cycle touring that you might have seen in my videos, leave a comment and ask me and I'll see what I can do. Alright, thanks for watching. So I found that it was really helpful when somebody sat me down and talked me through these steps. I was fortunate to have somebody who really sort of held my hand for the first